Guys, Miss Parnell here for the Democrat versus Republican notes. I know you took these notes with Miss Fadley. It's actually the note sheet on the back of the political party's notes that we just took, and it's a chart. So you probably took these with Miss Fadley. If not, you can take them with me. You can do one of two things. You can just write this on notebook paper or type it in Google Docs or something like that. Or there's a link on the website to a Google Doc and a Word doc, and you can open it up and print those out and write on them, or you can open them up and try and type in them. Remember, if you're doing a Google Doc, when you open it up, go to File, make a copy, and then make a copy and start typing it in your copy, and it'll save in your doc. So Democrats versus Republicans. So first up are their symbols. So Democrats are donkeys, D and D, easy way to remember that. Kind of interesting. It started in 1828 with a cartoonist making fun of Andrew Jackson, who was running for president at the time. And you can see he called him that. He called him a donkey, basically. And so they were trying to make fun of him, trying to use it as something bad, but the Democrats ended up taking pride in it. And they would say, yeah, we're like a donkey, like we're strong-willed. And, you know, we're not going to move just because you tell us to, because that's what a donkey, you can like pull on it. It doesn't want to move. It's not going to move. Republicans were like, nah, that's why you're like a donkey, you're stubborn and stuff like that. Republicans are an elephant. Again, this was used as a cartoon to make fun of Republicans. Republicans ended up taking it and saying, yes, we're big, we're strong, we're dignified. And Democrats use it to make fun of them, saying, no, you're big and you're slow and stuff like that. Political spectrum we talked about in the last PowerPoint on political parties. Democrats are on the left side of the political spectrum, and they are liberal, L and L, left and liberal. Republicans are on the right side, and they are conservative. Move this for us. R and R, right and Republican. Then we got some former Democratic leaders like former President Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, who was our former president, Hillary Clinton that ran for president, former President John F. Kennedy, the former presidents, the Roosevelts, Teddy and FDR, and our current governor, Roy Cooper, the guy that just said today, well, I don't know what day you're watching this, but today that I'm filming that, we would not be at school until at least May 15th. So governors have a lot of power. That's pretty crazy. And then Republicans. So current president Donald Trump, former president George W. Bush, also his father, the first Bush, both of our state senators, Thom Tillis and Richard Burr, and our representative from this area, although this area just changed map drawings, we talked about Virginia Fox. All right, so typical Democrats. So right here, we're getting really stereotypical. This does not mean every woman, every African-American, every younger citizen is a Democrat. No, there's plenty that are Republican. There's plenty that are independent. This is just like if we had to really go very broad, very vague, and like just kind of get stereotypical. So minorities tend to be more Democrats. So women, African-Americans, younger citizens, Latino Americans, sometimes people who are poor or live in the city, and people who live a lot of times up north or out west tend to be more on the Democratic Party. Again, it's not all of them, and it doesn't mean just because you're a Democrat, you have to be one of those things. It's not. But when the parties look at typically who supports them and who turns out to vote for them, they start to see trends, and then those are the people that they actually go after when they're campaigning and stuff. For Republicans, it tends to be the majority. So you're looking at men, white Americans, older Americans, wealthier. They don't live in the city. They live in the suburbs outside or the country. Think about like the country rural, stuff like that. They tend to live in the southern United States and the Midwest, and they tend to be religious. Now, again, not every Republican's religious, and obviously they're not all men. But again, when the parties look at who supports them, I mean, think about it. Donald Trump's a Republican. Think about who supports Donald Trump. Well, first off, you look, he's a man, he's white, he's older, he's claims to be religious, he's wealthier, he's, you know, like all these things are like, check, 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 right? But again, it's not everyone. So just kind of keep that in mind when we talk about these. So let's go through all the issues. So first off, sides of government. I talked about this extensively in the last PowerPoint, political party, so hopefully you got it. Democrats are liberal. Liberal is a fancy word for a lot. So they want a lot of government. They want a big government. They want it large and directly involved in your life. Whereas Republicans are conservative. To conserve something means a little bit. Like we said, if you're going to conserve toilet paper right now during this shortage, you should use a little bit of toilet paper. They want a little bit of government because they're conservative. They want it small and indirectly involved with their life. Taxes. Now think about it. Democrats aren't going to come right out and say, we're going to raise your taxes, because if they did that, no one would vote for them. But if you're going to have a lot of programs, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out it's going to cost money to run those programs. So when they took on healthcare, I mean, there's billions of dollars in the healthcare industry, from medicine to doctors to hospitals to equipment, and when they were getting involved in that, that meant that the budget went way, way up. And so that means money doesn't just appear out of thin air. We get it from taxes. People's taxes do go up. I know one of the things they talk about is like free college, and we could talk all day about if it's good or bad, but either way, if we pay the tuition for millions of people, that money's going to have to come from somewhere. And so it's going to come from taxes. So Democrats don't just outright say they're going to increase taxes, but historically speaking, they usually end up doing that. Whereas Republicans usually say they're going to lower taxes because they say, look, we don't need all these programs. We don't need healthcare. We don't need free tuition. We don't need this, and this, and all that stuff costs money. Then they don't need to collect your money. Like, they don't need to charge you a lot of taxes because they don't have a lot of programs going on. So less government means you're spending less money, which means you tax the people less. Welfare, Democrats tend to support it. It's a program that favors the poor. And a lot of times this is like a kind of a section of society that the Democrats really look after and take after. So obviously you're always going to take care of yourself. And so they're going to support this. People on welfare don't tend to be Republican, and you guys know how it is. You wouldn't support something that isn't what you are. So since Republicans don't tend to really be influenced by this program, they tend to be more against this program. Minimum wage, kind of going hand in hand. People who are urban or something, maybe a lot of times they work for minimum wage more. So again, Democrats are going to take care of themselves. They're going to look after their own and try and help themselves and help their own and better themselves. So they're going to want to increase it. Whereas Republicans a lot of times are going to want to decrease it or keep it the same because they tend to be the people who own the business. And if you own the business, the more money you have to pay to every worker, like $1 more per worker per hour every day adds up, and that's less profit for you. That's less money you get to take home. So they tend to be against it. Also, business regulation. So remember, the Republicans tend to be richer. That's usually the business owner. So they tend to think different about business regulations. Democrats tend to be the people who work for the business. So they want more regulation. Regulation is a fancy word for rules. They want more rules for businesses. They want to increase it because they don't want the businesses taking advantage of them, making them work long hours, not giving them breaks, not giving them a certain amount of paid vacation or sick leave or this, that, and the other. They want there to be rules so that the government, the businesses don't get out of control. Republicans tend to own the businesses. They want less rules. They say, look, let me run my business the way I want. Government, don't get involved. Don't tell me how I have to run my business. Don't give me all these things. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. So they usually want to decrease business regulation. They don't want the government all up in their business, so to speak. That was a good joke, wasn't it? Thank you. Military spending. Democrats tend to want to decrease it and spend less on the military, whereas Republicans tend to want to increase it. So again, maybe think about people who are Republican, get stereotypical here. It tends to be more males, stuff like that. Kind of goes hand in hand with like gun control that you're going to see in a minute. And, Republicans are going to be more about having guns. Well, so is the military. And you can kind of see the likenesses here. Foreign aid, Democrats with that liberalness, giving it out, spreading it. They're going to want to increase foreign aid and give money out, to other places in the world. Republicans are going to tend to want to decrease foreign aid. It's not to say that they don't like countries, other places in the world, but they're going to be more the mindset that they need to help America first and spend it here first. Gun control, like I said, Democrats want to increase gun control. So remember, gun control is like keeping people from getting guns, or bad guys, or people that shouldn't have it, mentally ill, stuff like that, or not getting certain types of guns, or there's an amount, not getting more than this amount of guns. That's what all gun control is. So Democrats want to increase it. They want stricter laws. They think it'll lead to a decrease in crime. Republicans tend to want to decrease gun control. They basically don't want their guns taken away from them, and they don't think there should be a limit to what they can buy, how much they could buy, when they can buy, who can buy. They're very protective of their guns, and they think stricter laws are not going to mean any type of decrease in crime. Death penalty. So Democrats are against death penalty. They believe it to be cruel and unusual punishment. Republicans support it. I always think of places like Texas that tend to be more Republican, and they have the highest death penalty. They're always, there's all these jokes like, you kill somebody in Texas, we don't kill you back, or stuff like this. They tend to be more strict in their punishment and stuff. So they support it. They say it's not cruel and unusual punishment. Affirmative action. So affirmative action, if we were in the classroom right now, I always draw this thing on the board and it makes it easier to understand it. But basically, affirmative action is this. It's to help minorities. So one of the things is like getting into college, okay? So take this scenario. 100 people apply to go to college. If these are little 100 people standing in a line and you zoomed in on those 100 people and you looked at those 100 people, let's be real, what do they look like? Probably mostly white, probably mostly male, probably mostly like middle class or upper class, came from good families, and all these kind of things. Does that mean they were the smartest or they were the best? Not necessarily. It just means maybe they had better opportunities at some point in life. And so maybe you don't see as many women, maybe you don't see as many African Americans or Latino Americans or stuff like this, but it doesn't mean they don't deserve to be in the mix. What affirmative action does is it kind of like holds places, so to speak. So like, let's say a college was going to take, it has 100 people standing in line. It says, all right, we're going to take 40 of those 100 people. If you counted the first 40 and sent those people in, like I said, you're probably not going to get a diverse representation. You're probably going to get mostly guys, mostly white, mostly wealthy, yada, yada. So they say, all right, how about this? We take the first 20 in line, and then we do, 5 women and 5 African Americans and 5 Hispanics and 5 Asians. And that adds up to be 40. And that guarantees that we'll have diversity. It guarantees we'll have women, African Americans, Hispanics, stuff like that. That's affirmative action. And so it's like basically taking action it's just trying to be equitable, basically, and kind of increase, diversity and make sure everyone has like the same chances and the same rights. Nobody's penalized for things that were out of their control or something. Republicans tend to be against affirmative action. You can think about it because it hurts non-minorities. So we think about stereotypically what Republicans are like. They're not minorities. And since this helps minorities, they're going to tend to be against it because in turn, it would hurt them. Abortion, Democrats tend to support it. They're pro-choice. They're not pro-abortion. Okay, so don't think they're just running around like loving this or anything. They're not. They're pro-choice. So they think that it should be the woman's choice what to do with her body, not basically the government's. Republicans are going to fall more on their religious lines, and they're going to be more pro-life. And so they're going to be looking at it like murder's murder, killing's killing, doesn't matter if it's a baby type thing. That's really interesting. Those are flip-flops from what you learned with the death penalty. Don't know why. Remember, Democrats were against the death penalty. They support abortion. Republicans supported the death penalty, but they're against abortion. So I don't know. It's kind of like they equal out in a weird way. Healthcare, Democrats support it. They want free healthcare for all. That's what passed with Obamacare. Obama was a Democrat. Whereas Republicans are against it, and they don't want healthcare to be free. They want it to be a business. If you want it, go get healthcare, go get health insurance. If you don't, and call it a day. Immigration, Democrats want it to be easier to become a citizen. They want more rights for non-citizens. Again, those people tend to be minorities. Minorities tend to be Democrat, kind of looking out for your own. Whereas Republicans want to reinforce the borders, less rights for non-citizens. That shouldn't be hard to remember. Just think of Donald Trump. He's a Republican, and probably his biggest thing has been about building a wall. So you can see how he feels about immigration. Education, Democrats want national government control. Again, that liberal, that big, everyone. Whereas Republicans want to be more state control. They want it conserve, smaller, just us deciding. The environment, Democrats tend to want to protect the environment. So they want more laws protecting it. They're against new gas, new oil, new mineral exploration. They're against like tearing up the environment. Republicans want less laws protecting it. It's not that they just want to destroy the environment, but they can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money off gas, oil, minerals, stuff like that. And Republicans tend to be rich and make a lot of money. They tend to be the business owners, and you could run this business right here and make a lot of money. So that's where they come from. Marriage, Democrats support equal marriage rights for all, regardless of sex. And Republicans believe marriage should be only between a man and woman. Again, kind of falling back on those religious party lines. This would be liberal. The Democrats be liberal, giving it out to all. You get a marriage, you get a marriage, you get a marriage. And Republicans tend to go back to those religious roots and say it should only be between a man and a woman. And that is it. Bye. See you guys later.